Hello, everybody, and welcome to another A Better Way of Life. As I said that, and the words were coming out of my mouth, I sounded incredibly posh for 2 seconds, which I'm not. So apologies if it sounded very posh. Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Better Way of Life. And that just sounds creepy. How are you, Marianne?
Better than I was at the weekend. I'm never ill. I have a bad back and a cold, but I'm okay. I'm alive. So.
Yes, I've not been overly well this weekend, and I'm on the pucker. They are promotion. If you want to send us some tea bags, that's great. Pucker. But I'm on the pucker on the green tea. Hopefully that will just reset the antioxidants and all of that sort of thing.
There's a lot going around, I think.
Well, there's a lot going around, and there's people being ill as well. So all of that's happening. Now, we are joined today in our little cupboard, our little room, by the wonderful Lucy Buxton. Lucy, if I click my fingers, there she is. Okay, Lucy, wow, amazing. The modern rigors of technology. How are you, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm really good.
Good.
Really good. You good?
Well, as we were saying, we've both been slightly under the weather, really. Which is that's an odd saying, isn't it? Under the weather. Where's that come from?
I don't know under what weather, but
yeah. Which weather have we been under? What does why is it got anything to do with the weather? Changeable weather? Yeah. It's a bit of a myth, though, isn't it? Actually, because we and it's almost like sorry, you'll find that I do go off at a tangent, Lucy. But it's also like the fact that we call it a cold. Because actually it's got nothing to do with cold, is it? It's a virus. Yeah.
I'm just wondering what I was going to find out what under the weather means.
Oh yeah, do find out what under the weather means. Yeah, I love little sayings, little idioms, little things.
My friend Stephen's got a book actually, Straight from the Horse's Mouth. Nice little plug for him, and it's full of all of those things. It's an amazing book.
Yeah.
Amazing book, Straight from the Horse's Mouth. What does under the weather mean? It means
Lucy, have you got a favourite little saying that people say on a regular occasion that you think, oh, what does that actually mean? Where does that come from? Putting you on the spot there, but
I wouldn't say I've got a favourite one.
No, you haven't. Is there anything, Marianne? What about you? Is there something that people say on a regular basis?
I love, when I think I've got this right. When you say pigs might fly.
Pigs might fly, yeah.
In France, I'm sure it's les poulets dans les dents, and the chickens have teeth. I'm sure that's what it is.
Chickens have teeth.
I'm sure that's what it is. But I was thinking as well that I don't know if people use these so much now, because I know my kids are sort of younger. I mean, some are only 15, 16, and whether I would have known them then, but I don't think people use them as much now.
No, maybe not. Maybe people have realised that they're absolutely nonsense and they have no meaning. Though. Yeah, they are. It's just leftovers from a time gone by, etc.
The graveyard shift.
Oh, there's one. There you go. The graveyard shift. Yeah.
And when you work out where these things come from, that's probably the reason for why people don't choose to use them anymore. So the graveyard shift one is where people used to be buried, and to ensure that they were no longer, needing the world, should we suggest.
They'd shuffled off this mortal coil. Yeah.
We used to have like a piece of string tied around the finger, and somebody would sit at the top on the land outside the graveyard with this piece of string. And if the person had been buried yet they weren't quite ready to be buried, they could pull on the piece of string, and then the person at the top would know, and then they'd have to dig them and fetch them back out again. So it's probably one of the reasons why using that as a thing to say is not the best thing to say, really. It's a bit like raining cats and dogs. That goes back to when they used to chuck the chamber pots out of the windows.
Right. Oh, my word.
This could very much be the reason. There's a skeletons in the closet one. I'm sure that when Stephen took us on a tour in London, and there was one about the skeletons in the closet, and I think he mentioned that about the the graveyard shift as well. Those ones on there, really interesting. It's like colourful.
I never knew that about the graveyard shift one. That is so fascinating. Mind you, it did feel a bit like that when I first started working in radio. I had the graveyard shift, which was between sort of 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was horrible. it certainly felt like pulling.
Not good doing night shift. It's not good doing a waking night.
Oh,
that time you just feel like, I remember sort of getting to about 3. This is before TV. You could watch any decent TV, throughout the night. I think I'd get to about 4 and just feel sick.
Well, the thing that used to get me, especially in radio, was that the thing is that what people want to put on radio at that time in the morning, or certainly back then, was stuff that would help people get to sleep. But the trouble is, you're sitting there trying to be awake, playing all of this stuff that's trying to send people to sleep, and it really does. It's just dreadful, So it's all of this stuff, and you have to speak in a very, very going back to the voice thing, calming and whatever. You just send yourself to sleep. You end up, wanting to go.
Any job where you want people to go to sleep when you're doing your work.
I could certainly do that now. Anyway, enough of this frivolity. Lucy, lovely to meet you. Where are you coming from?
In a little hamlet in Worcestershire.
Oh, that sounds so nice, doesn't it? I love it. There's another thing. I love the word hamlet. Couldn't smoke one because you're not allowed to advertise that these days either. So how many sort of people live there?
There's I think about 41 properties. It's a collection of little villages.
Yes.
That have been here for a very long time. Yeah, I think one of the oldest buildings is probably about 1,000 years old in parts, and part of my cottage goes back to 1586.
Oh, I love that. 1586. That's wonderful. Yeah, I grew up in a 16th century cottage, and and it was fine until I got to about 6 foot, and then I used to bang my head every 5 minutes.
Yeah, we do have that challenge in some bits. It's there's a room in the cottage at the back of the old cottage, the very old bit, where they then have built footings for the extension with the room that I'm in now. And so that the floors could be level. So the ceiling of the cottage downstairs and the floor up here, it's created a space that, you'd have to be exceedingly small to live in there.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess actually doing a place up like that as well, that's quite challenging as well, isn't it? Because
it has been. Yeah, it has been, because it's
is it wattle and daub?
Yeah, so part of the lounge is wattle and daub.
Yeah.
And then there's just the other challenges that come from it, in the sense of when you buy a property, you're always going to pick up stuff that the previous owners may have not done. But it's just how do you keep it all in keeping, and then the movement of things. And so I've got steels on the beams in the lounge, the old part of the lounge, and then you can see where the wood historically has been munched by woodworm, but it's all been treated.
Yeah.
And then it's how do you blend that really old into something that's newer. So yeah, it's a very, very, very quirky cottage, which wouldn't suit most people, but I'm very, very quirky, so it suits me.
Oh, I like that. I'm thinking, as I said, wattle and daub, that there's probably some youngsters actually Googling that now, thinking that's some kind of make of paint or something. Just Google it. You'll see what it is. What it is a very messy task whenever you actually have to replace part of a wall that's got wattle and daub. That is messy. Very, very messy indeed. So, Lucy, tell us a bit about what it is that you do.
Oh, wow. What do? I spend my time listening to people and helping them achieve their goals. They might be stuck, they might be overwhelmed, they might be stressed. And I do that for individuals and businesses. So I originally set up my business going back into 2018 because things in my personal world were not good at that point in time. And I had to prioritize my family. So I left my role, set up my business. And because at the time I had a head of compliance role, I set up my business to kind of do compliance work, but it was never really where I wanted to be, I think, long term. And I never thought back then that I'd be here now. So where I started out and what I do now does not look anything like, you could say I'm a lobster. You know, that skin has been shedded several times during the 5.5 years of working for myself to being something completely different now to what I set out to do in the first place. And fundamentally, I absolutely love what I do now. Helping to make the difference for people. So it might be that somebody comes to me who's just really stuck, overwhelmed, burnt out. It's been through, you know, challenge after challenge. And over a period of weeks, we work together, and those challenges just become memories. They no longer feel those emotions, and they're no longer burnt out, worn out and exhausted. And yes, I do that for individuals and for businesses too, which is really good.
Cool. Now, look, before we come back to what it is that you do now, that journey is one that probably lots of people listening could echo, and especially if it sort of transcended over the sort of COVID period as well. Was COVID a sort of an incubator to change for you? Was it something that just came within that time frame, or?
Well, it came within that time frame, but looking on reflection, strangely, I think there were lots of events that happened in COVID for us as a family that were a big catalyst. So my journey of change started in 2018. And my mum died at the same point that we found out my daughter was very poorly. So mum died and my daughter went into hospital. And then I set up my business. So then COVID started kind of the beginning of 2020, didn't it? And it hit here in March 2020. But my daughter came home from hospital in the December of 2019. So I finished the contract work that I was doing, and I had a couple of other visits. So I then went down with COVID very much at the beginning of, I think it was about the 11th or 12th of March, I think, if I remember rightly. It was the day when they stopped tracking and tracing people. So I was very early to get COVID. Right. And strangely, had I have not got COVID, I would have then gone on to have back-to-back contracts and been super, super busy. But I didn't, because I was poorly, and my daughter really needed her mom kind of one-to-one kind of thing when she first came home from hospital and over those following months. So it being very, very quiet in the world enabled my daughter to have the space that she needed to be able to build her confidence after not being at home for 16 months, because that's how long she was in hospital. My dad also moved in with us that first lockdown, and it was pivotal for him because he realised how lonely he was after mum died, and he hadn't kind of looked at it. And he went back home after about 6 or 7 weeks, and it was just, no, this was too much. And over the course of the months, he worked through that, put his house up for sale and moved, so that he's now 15 minutes down the road from us. So yes, it was very pivotal time for us as a family.
Yeah, I think it was for so many people out there. That whole thing about being a lobster as well, though, Marianne, does that resonate with you at all? I mean, it's one of those things. I'm not 100% sure whether, you know, we do it on purpose, if you know what I mean. Is there something about somebody that is destined to run their own business or whatever, or be entrepreneurial, etc., that means that they deliberately shed skin several times to get to the right point, or is it kind of thrust upon us? Not sure.
No, I just don't ever really think about what I'm going to do. I do, which is at odds, because I know sometimes quite a lot of coaches and people I've spoken to in the past want to know, where do you want to get to? It's interesting because I put a post on LinkedIn yesterday about action goals and results goals, and which do people use mostly. And interestingly, and it got me thinking about it, because I was telling you about, I was listening to Bob Dial's Mindset Mentor. Brilliant podcast. I love it. Quite short as well. And he was talking about that. And then he was talking about how he had a friend that earned crazy amounts, but that actually for that person, the money was neither here nor there. I mean, it's nice to have made. But he said he'd asked him, why do you carry on? Why do you carry on with all these businesses? You don't need to. And actually, it was the money was a byproduct. And it got me thinking about me and about how someone said to me a while ago, a friend said to me, what does he want to, what's your aim? Where do you want to get to? And I said, I don't know. I just love doing what I do. And I thought I was bad because of that. And it was only when I heard that, and I thought, that's just because of the sort of person I am, because I love what I do. It's not good sometimes, because it does lead me to probably not stop, but that's just, there isn't necessarily an end goal for me. It's just, I do love doing what I do. So I feel really lucky that I've sort of got the chance. Lucky? I don't know if it's lucky sometimes that I can do what I do as a business. Did I think I'd do it at a point when I probably had to leave jobs when I was told to do things that I didn't agree with because I've got integrity, then maybe. But if you'd said to me when I was younger, could I? I'd have said no, because nobody ever thought I could do anything. I was never thought that I would ever become of anything. I was Miss Average. Which is why I hadn't really set up as an accredited centre, because I just assumed you had to be a big company.
Yeah, I think that's fairly common for a lot of people, isn't it, Lucy? That a lot of people think that they need to be of a certain size, or they have to be a certain something in order to be successful, and it has to look a certain way. But that's not necessarily true.
I think that comes down to a lot of the things that we've been told in our lives, whether that be from the environment that you've been in, your experiences, kind of society, culture. And also we've got to think about, and this is where there's a lot of change happening around the world at the moment. And if you think about education fundamentally, everybody having that opportunity to have education was more around the Industrial Revolution and needing component labour. And component labour does not need to know how to be an entrepreneur. So we're not going to educate you in this mindset, this thinking, these values to be able to get there. Picking up what you were saying, Marianne, about goals, I think goals are all very well and good, but fundamentally without action and without those steps, you might not get there. And I think it's also not necessarily just about the goals. It's about your alignment to your purpose, and you're clearly very aligned with your purpose. And as long as you're aligned with that purpose, you understand it, then you will continue to aspire. And it may be for some people that goals are just too overwhelming and too big. And that in itself, if you've been told that you will come to nothing, if we think about it from a trauma, I guess, kind of a trauma-informed approach, if you're told that you won't come to anything and you believe that, and then you go and set something that's so huge, then likelihood is that your brain will then go, that's really scary, I can't do it. And then you won't be able to move forward, and you'll end up doing that thing called procrastination. So I think for some people, I was talking to my daughter about it yesterday, and I said, well, maybe let's just not think about that end goal. Let's just think about where you're at today. And interestingly, she's, her scenario and where she's at is something that I think has been really key for her. It's not about that end goal. I might have had that end goal in my mind that she'd have been able to come home and get on with her life. But that end goal for her was something that always kept shifting. And right now that end goal has changed. So many months ago, she wanted to be a tattoo artist. Well, that end goal at the moment has moved to, well, actually, Mum, I want to go and get a degree in art. Okay, so what are the steps? But the steps for her, if we constantly look at the degree in art, they're too overwhelming. So actually what we're doing now is that she's got to build a portfolio of artwork so she can go to college to do her access to higher education, because she didn't get her GCSEs. She only got 2 last year. That means that, well, let's buy some paper, let's buy some pens, and you draw one picture today. She drew the one picture yesterday, but actually because she'd drawn the one picture and that was safe and that was okay, she was able to draw a second. So then tomorrow she'll be able to pick up a drawing again and draw another one. So she'll have 3 drawings to show her brain that I've achieved 3 drawings and I'm safe and I'm okay.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I worked for a particular hospital supporting students, I don't know if I can say, so I would work with the students, so they were living in units, and so they would come in and then be taught. And it was really interesting because in the end, well, COVID kind of helped things along with that, but I was at odds a bit with the way that things were run, because it didn't feel like, so I had a particular student that was doing sociology and psychology, very good student. The problem was that she'd have time off because she had an eating disorder, she'd be off. And so she probably was never going to get them, the A levels. Not because she wasn't good enough, but she just wasn't well enough to be able to put that work in. So I then spoke to them there and I said, look, I've had a conversation with her and she really loves Japan. She loves it. She'd really like to go, and it's the only thing that I've seen that really captures her. I can really see she comes alive. And I said that at the time I was doing a TEFL qualification, and I said, could she do that with me? Because if you enrolled her on it, she could do it, sort of alongside me, or I could work with her. Because actually, while she's doing these qualifications, I don't think they're actually, it's too far ahead for her to be able to see. And she would have been absolutely fine going to university. She had the ability to do it. And I said, I just feel that she actually needs a reason to be at the moment. Not about being alive. She just needs a reason to be. And they kept saying to her, I'll go and get a part-time job. And I said, no, she needs something real to her, something that's actually real to her. So we put it to them. They said, no, she couldn't do it. And I just kind of felt really frustrated because I thought, why are we, what's the point? So whenever I used to write their reports, it's funny now because when I do my teacher training, I talk about this. We used to have to write the reports that were very objective, with what their goals were, that they'd achieved this and that. And so I would always be very clear. Obviously, I had to say for the local authorities that whether they'd achieved it or not. I said, however, this person has come to this amount of lessons. They've been in the room for 15 minutes, but actually at the beginning of the term, they wouldn't even come in the room. They'll talk to me, they'll do this and that, which if you don't get that bit, you're never going to get the other bit anyway, if they don't feel safe enough, for you to be able to come in. And when I look back at being at school myself, I don't know, anybody remember Jig Cow at school? And you used to have to colour in the boxes. Do you remember Jig Cow? The careers thing, you used to have to
I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to very, very quickly just say this. I remember very little from school. As I realised the other day when my son was trying to tell me all about maths and do you not know this from maths and and I said no.
Oh,
can't remember diddly squat of it. No. Diddly squat. Only remember the subjects you like.
Well, this Jig Cow thing, you had to answer all these questions and it would tell you what you were going to be or what you should be. So I did want to be a physiotherapist. I think it came up with that. Obviously, I wasn't one. But what was interesting about this was that it would say what job, and this is how the world has changed, and how there was a young lady that she lived with us for a little bit because she fallen out with her mum for various reasons, and she went to grammar school, and there was a lot of pressure on them then, and she'd gone into sixth form, and she'd come to live with us at that time, and she was really struggling with her mental health. And she then got behind. I think she had to repeat the year. I said, "Oh God, I want to be a teacher, and I won't be able to blah 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 blah." I said, "You can do what you want. Anything you want to do, you can do." And I said, "You might have to take a different route to get there." I said, "I didn't start out as a teacher." And I said, "What I love now to become a teacher now, you don't even have to have a degree. You can do it a different route to get there." And actually, as it was, she retook the year, and then in the end, actually, she withdrew from the sixth form, and then she actually in the end then went to what's it called? Open University. So she started. Unfortunately, she had. We talked about this before, Lucy. PMDD, and she took her own life, unfortunately. But what I do know is for that period of time, when she lived with us, that she felt safe and she felt able to make choices that I think we moved very much on now from you've got to be this or you've got to be that, because we can see so much more. There's jobs that my kids now won't even know exist. There'll be jobs coming up that, so I think we're in a much different world, but for people maybe our kind of age, it's still moving away from that idea of we had that what do you want to be when you're older sort of thing. And I don't even ask my kids that now.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It goes back to what I was saying about how the world is changing and about the fact that there's a large element of the world that is still designed for component labour.
Yes.
And that they want widgets, and you can build that up and take a look and go down a rabbit warren around the white matrix and all that kind of stuff. But what you're talking a lot about is just fundamentally kind of graded exposure, that approach of little bits, and let's just take one step and see how we get on. And if you step back a couple of steps, well, that's okay, and we'll step forward. And when you talk about that young lady specifically, she was living with a condition that for her was so debilitating. For every other 2 weeks of her life, her world was turned upside down, and fundamentally,
and it wasn't diagnosed at the time as well.
Yeah, and fundamentally, and if it's not diagnosed, then she wouldn't have been able to understand the condition. She wouldn't have understood how she responded. And it's such a little understood condition. And 1 in 20 women have PMDD, and they probably don't even have a clue. But then if you think about all of the going back to the world thing and the should-isms and the component labour and how we need to keep women in boxes and this and that and the other, well, we're not likely to then really invest and look into conditions like PMDD. Why would we? We'd just label them as emotionally unstable personality disorder or this and that and the other. And when fundamentally it's the changes in the chemicals in the body that the brain can't deal with those changes. It's just one of those things, and it's a horrific condition to live with, and that's what my daughter has, as Marianne knows.
I do, yeah. I mean, I'm just pleased that we did sort of latterly when she moved out, but I still love the fact she used to, every so often when life got too, or I just get an email or just a text or something, and she was like a sister to my boy, so I was a bit like an auntie stroke mum friend type thing. But she always felt very safe being able to
no judgment,
safe. And I know for me a lot of and I know a lot of it from me has been that I just see life as a journey, really. And so whether that's learning as a journey or life. And actually, there was a job I didn't get once. And they said, actually, it was all your experience you've had. That's why we wanted you, because you've got that experience. So I never I don't really see it as failure. It's just that long journey. And for me, I don't know if it's my ADHD. And I think I've spoken to you about this, Lucy, before, when I sort of first started out, and where shall I go? And for me, I have to sort of almost get to the end of the line with something to go, okay, now I know that wasn't what I wanted to do, so I'll push that out of the way. Now I'll try something else. And I quite like that process. I quite like that. I've never been someone that's gone, real burning desire to be such and such, because I just know I'll probably change my mind a million times along the way.
Chances are that because your thinking is different, like my thinking is different as well, because I'm neurodiverse, I'm dyslexic, and it's that it could very well be over the next however many years that the thought around goals is something that necessarily probably doesn't have so much kind of, oh, this is what you need to do around it, because it will be more about the growth and the empowerment and the lifting people up, rather than where are you going to get to, because you need to decide which job you're going to go into, so that we have given you a way where you can earn that thing called money, which enables you to get where you need to go. The world's going to change drastically in 20 years. I mean, we're seeing it so much now on so many levels. I mean, you can look at the strikes over here in England. You can look at the massive impact on mental well-being of young people, 500,000 people on the CAMHS waiting list. The amount of parents that are going, not doing this, taking the kids out of school and home educating them way more than they did. How many people are jumping on and doing van life? How many people are leaving this country and going for a quieter life? But then if you look at it one step further and you see what's happening with the farmers all across Europe and in Wales, and the world is changing massively, and people are thinking differently. And there will be that element of, yeah, I'm sure things will get a bit more uncomfortable before they settle down, as they always do.
Well, the world is changing, and people are thinking differently, but fundamentally, a large proportion of the world is run by organisation, isn't it? And that's,
completely, it is. It's run by very, very few organisations, whatever you want to call them, who then are at the top of the tree, that, you know, kind of, and that whole kind of system where the world's set up and driven by fear and war and how that impacts economics, that is falling apart. You only just have to stand back and look. Yes, it's going to get a bit more uncomfortable, but it will fall apart. It doesn't fit the way that people think today. People have too much access to information. There's no more going and buying and looking at the one book that has been written in one lens, one viewpoint. You can go into Google and go down whatever rabbit hole you want. So take, for example, the news. I might see something on one platform, but then I can go into Google and go, but hang on a minute, the video was taken in this way, you know, and that will then change people's opinions and thinking. So it won't be very much that they will follow the rules and do as they're told. They'll be able to go, actually, but there's this opinion and there's this point of view that fits here, but I can see your point of view, but what about this one as well? And that's
true. But I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit and say that whilst you say that, what I see, especially on things like LinkedIn, and Marianne will know I do my polls every morning, etc. Have done for about 4 years. And part of it's me playing with people to see how people think.
You wouldn't do that, would you, Graham?
Absolutely. And because that's fun. One of the things is that I do see there is that despite people wanting to think in their own way, etc., that people do still follow each other like sheep.
I absolutely don't disagree with you at all.
And when it comes to wanting an answer, people still, and certainly organisations kind of almost have to have it, want an answer to something. So we want almost a golden rule, right? It's like people will go,
well, rules keep us safe, don't they?
Yeah. It's like, tell me which is the best way to do this, which is the best way to do that, which is the way that we should go, you know, which way do we follow? And anybody that actually just says, well, why don't we just challenge the way that there are, or why don't we just discuss the various ways that there are? It gets kind of like a little bit of a look at them, like, it's like, what do you mean? Let's think about it, or just go. I just want to know which is like who's got the best podcast at the moment. Who's the business guru that we should all be looking at that tells us how we all get there? You know, well, maybe there isn't one. You know, and every time you stand back and you go, well, but maybe there isn't an answer. Maybe there isn't the truth.
So what's the age population of the people that are in LinkedIn on the majority?
between sort of the majority would be sort of mid-30s to mid-50s.
Okay. And who is the generation that we are seeing massive changes in their mental well-being? I've already mentioned them. Young people. So young people have got the thinking that is different. Yeah.
Yeah.
They will look at things from a different perspective. They're a different generation. They have a different set of rules. A heck of a lot of people that live in the LinkedIn world still follow the rules, do as they're told. And that's why when somebody who's different and sticks it out there, they might be a bit, ooh, and you're always going to have your early adopters, and you're always going to have those people that are never going to change and never going to get on board. And fundamentally, fear keeps us where we are. So I can't be different. And oh my goodness me, you wouldn't, I can't believe you've just said that. Well, why would I not? Not many people have that thinking of it's actually okay to own my own opinion and to be different because they've been told that's how they should be. And if you think about it, think back to the pandemic, think about the fact that in this country, they were able to run a campaign to be able to keep people at home. That's because a large proportion of society in this country and across the world follow the rules and do as they're told.
It's really hard though. My neighbour, who I do want to get on here, Graham, and there's another friend of mine. We speak quite a lot about this kind of thing. She hasn't got any children, which I do think is quite a factor. She's quite interestingly, we used to work in the corporate world. When we first moved in here, I was thinking, oh my gosh, look at her. She's all perfect. She goes off in a beautiful outfits and stuff. It's me with a child looking a mess all the time. And then she went away and I didn't realise lots of things happened to her. And then she came back. It was very much a free spirit. And when I saw her the other day, she was saying about, she spend a lot of time reading about lots of different things, which don't have the time to do that. That's why I get frustrated that it takes that time to try and find the truth, which is where it's wrong. You shouldn't have to have, a certain, I can do research, when I did my degree, I did. But she was saying about how she doesn't pay her bills and she doesn't do this, didn't do that. And oh, you should do it. And I said, but it's not just me that I'm responsible for. I've got 2 children and I might want to make, if it was just me on my own, maybe there'd be a lot of decisions that I would make very different. But do I take that chance? Do I take the chance not to do this, not to do that? I've already got a parking fine that I'm apparently going to get taken to court for, and I will argue that one. But you take it further and further. It's not just, so I think that's why I think a lot of people do, because of those responsibilities. I think.
Yeah, and I think
definitely
it's
fear.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's those things because we think about what we should do. I was thinking about this earlier before we jumped on the call. And I've submitted a planning application. And I was like, why hasn't it landed on the portal yet? Oh, okay, so I emailed my architect and he came back to me this morning. He said, we've got to have a bat survey. I went, but I haven't got bats. I said, I've got, these vaulted ceilings. I haven't got bats. And he went, problem is, years ago, people would get their approval, be told that they needed to do a bat survey and wouldn't do it. I said, so now you have to have the bat survey done. I went, but I haven't got bats. He went, you just have to do it. And it's one of those things where you have to decide which is the bigger picture for me. The bigger picture is the extension, getting my dad living with me, being safe and secure and this and that and the other. And if I have to suck up the fact that the Batman has to come, I have to have the Batman come and I just have to laugh it off. Whereas, unfortunately, there are some rules that we have to follow still, and there are some rules that we don't have to follow. And
but it's like it's like this parking fine thing. This one I will stand firm with it. And I will. And I said to them, you can take me to court if you want to. You can take me to court because I'm pretty certain they won't. And I'm pretty certain they wouldn't win because of various things they've done. But as you say, you weigh that up, don't you? That actually, I'm willing to fight that fight. But like you said, you need your extension. So, and I guess this is what happens all round. I just heard that they said they were going to, and it infuriated me this. even as a teacher it did, that they're going to up the fines now.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, right, at the time when people have less money, they were going to up it, knowing full well that won't make a difference anyway. All of it just seemed a bit as if someone had just come up with this.
Is this fines for what? Not attending school?
Taking them out of them out of school. Which, I mean, I had to laugh about it because we did it one year. All the other years they were fine. I think it was like 3 years maybe. And then the one year we did it, one of mine had 100%, the other one had 99%. And the head teacher that year obviously went on a rampage on it, and we got fined. So it was both parents per child. But it still made more sense. But other people had
lost you there for a minute. Oh, we've lost her.
Yeah, we've lost her. She's on a mission about her holiday stuff. But I guess picking up what Marianne was saying is that people will look at the bigger picture. So if I take them out of term for a few days, and actually that means I can get my holiday 500 quid cheaper, then you know what? I'm going to pay £160 or whatever it is in fines, because that to me is a no-brainer. And it's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's about people being able to make a informed decision rather than a decision based on fear.
Yeah.
Am I back?
You're
yes,
back.
You are. I think most parents that have got a larger family, 5 children, will have done it at some point, because it just financially makes so much more sense to.
But I am sure though that they're keeping it still at that point. So when I heard them saying about upping the amount, people still, but there will sadly be some people that will fear, oh, we're going to get in trouble or whatever else. And actually then, and what I thought was sad about that was at a time when you don't have as much money. I'm trying to think what I was thinking at the time about it, but actually what those kids get from spending that time with their family. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm advocating people taking kids out of school all the time, but just authorize a week. And if the child hasn't had huge amounts of time off, which mine hadn't, then they actually got to go away on a cruise with their nan for her 70th birthday, which, time they might not have got.
I'd love it if actually you could write an essay into the school, which you can't do because they won't allow you to do it. But if you could write an essay actually proving it was probably more educational than spending the week in school, and talking about all of the activities that you're going to do, which would actually educate your child during that week.
Well, because it depends on what you say education is, though, doesn't it? It depends, well, exactly. Because already, I mean, I've just been talking about this, that my youngest, they do mock trials at school. So they have someone come in, they had a magistrate came in, and as somebody I've seen, I've talked about this on social media, and I said to him, oh, that's really, really good. He said, yeah, I think I might like to be a lawyer, which is interesting because his old head teacher said he would, because he quite likes arguing the toss. In fact, he'll put an argument forward. In fact, this morning he called out to me. I said to him, are you ready yet? Because he'd been up in my room. Are you ready yet? He said, yes. And I said, how can you be? That was maybe it's 2 minutes, and he said, well, are you ready? I said, yes. He said, well, I'm ready too. He caught me on that one, because I was saying I could be ready, but he then said he wanted to do boxing as well, because that's what he wanted to be, a boxer. And he said, I can't really do both because it wouldn't look good if I turned up to court with a black eye and a smashed in face. He said, because the judge might tell me off. But what's interesting about that is that what is education? He does boxing, he loves doing that. He does the mock trials. Education, that doesn't have to just be. I bet some of the best learning experiences you've had didn't happen in the classroom.
Yeah. So what we're saying there, again, by the way, we're not condoning taking your children out of school when they should be in school. We'll just make that absolutely clear. But what we are saying is that, is the truth right in the first place? And we're just questioning whether or not,
but what is the truth? We're back again. So what is the truth?
Yeah. Well, what's actually prevailing over that system? What are people trying to achieve by telling you you've got to do it?
It's people's agenda, though, isn't it? Arguably, it's like you said, Lucy. That there would be an agenda. So I know when I was working for the other particular company that there was an agenda And I wasn't fitting that by saying, well, actually, I think that the process is more important, because of course we're back to this process, whether it's the process of learning or whether it's the actual, whether it's objective or subjective. So it's about getting qualifications. Why do qualifications pay? Or because these places get more money, the more qualifications, or they look better for that, don't they? Saying somebody stayed in the room for 15 minutes, in the eyes of it being measurable, isn't necessarily going to be beneficial. For me, every time I was always going to celebrate that, even if nobody paid attention.
I think it's also, I wonder how much that we need to kind of think differently about the path, and that it's not all linear. You look at my daughter, who was an A+ student. She was doing so well, but then her world fell apart, and that's not going to stop the end result. I can see that she will end up being a really entrepreneurial businesswoman who will earn a heck of a lot. And fundamentally, she's got way more now, at not quite 20, life experience than I would suggest to heck a lot of 40-year-olds.
Yeah. And I wanted to end today. It's been a great conversation. Thank you very much, Lucy, for joining us. I wanted to end today by just picking up on one last thing that you said earlier on. Right, having been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life, having started at the age of 11 with my first company, you talked about some people being procrastinators. Now, I have never procrastinated in my entire life. I've never been a procrastinator. Is that the mark of someone that's an entrepreneur, not to procrastinate? Is procrastination actually a problem for too many people out there?
I think people don't choose consciously to procrastinate. Some people don't choose consciously to procrastinate. There will be a reason for why people do find that they can't move forward, that they're stuck. I would think that an entrepreneurial mindset is different. It's very much about goal getting and how they are built as an individual, and fundamentally our experiences inform who we are, and that desire to kind of expand your thinking and think differently. It's also about, I guess, the motivation, isn't it? Are you motivated towards something rather than away from something? I set up my business because I had to. I never went down this route because I wanted to. But what's really strange now is that I'm at a point where I want to. I really want to grow, expand, change, mix up, push to the next level. And that's because my thinking is different. That's because the environment that I'm in is very different. The reason why I set up my business in the first place was because my dad turned around to me and said, well, what are you going to do for work now? And I said, I suppose I better work for myself, because no person's going to employ me now. My motivation for setting up my business was so that I could be there to support my daughter. Now, she's getting on, she's flying, she's got her wings, she'll always need a mum. Well, that's what I tell her. Don't think she'd agree. But anyway, it's that my motivation to continue to do what I am doing is completely different now. And it's about me, and it's about the impact that I have. So, yeah, I guess it would be for what purpose?
Yeah.
Right in the beginning.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely certain that part of my motivation in life started because I saw my dad work for years and years and years for a firm, and then just got laid off or moved to the side. And I just thought, well, what's the point?
Well, my son's very much that attitude. He set up a YouTube channel before he went to uni, and he's got not far off 200,000 subscribers. It supported him financially through uni. It's what he does now. And he's like, I don't see, if I've got to spend a lot of time of my life working, I am not going to spend it doing something I don't enjoy. So and he says, I'm also not going to work really, really hard for somebody else to take on my money. What would be the point? And I think a lot of people are thinking like that. And I think it's one of the reasons why kids are struggling, because it's like a juxtaposition. It's like one thing is what they're feeling and wanting, but it's something else that they're told that they should do. So it's this.
It's interesting when my son picked his GCSEs, and I thought even at the age of whatever they are when they're 14, I don't know, he said, I really love music and I like computer science. And he said, I love music, doesn't necessarily pay as much. He said, I'm trying to think. He said, I've got to think about earning, but he said, I've also got to think that I love. But he did say both. And I thought, well, no, because you've still got to have your head screwed on, haven't you? You've still got to pay the bills. So I thought it was really wise words from somebody who was younger. So he's doing music production he's going to do.
That's good.
So,
yeah.
And he loves it. It's the thing that he loves. And he knows that's the sort of person he is that has to love what he does. So
maybe I'm an awful dad. I just told my 15-year-old, do what you love. And we can always work out how you make money later.
Well, I didn't tell it. No, I didn't tell him what. No, he was the one that
I don't think that's an awful thing to say, because that's what I've said to both my kids.
No, I didn't tell him that. He was the one that I think, actually, you've still got to be sensible. And he was saying, you know, I've got to think.
No, he worked that out for himself, which is brilliant. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's been fantastic conversation. If you haven't connected with Lucy already on any of the platforms that she's on, where are you? LinkedIn and anywhere else? Lucy?
Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram.
No, when I'm not in jail. I'm not in jail anymore. No, because I removed the little green and blue heart, so I'm a good girl. I didn't get, I got put in jail for 2 emojis.
Oh my word!
Oh, I've got one. Can you get in trouble for that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
but don't worry.
I got locked out because of my emojis.
Gosh, I didn't know that.
Who knows?
No.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this, please do share it with your friends, your family, your turtle, whatever. And we'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.
Bye.